Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to my channel. Today, let's finally talk about Expanded and the state of it after the Champions League event that happened over in Japan. This happened alongside a massive event over in Japan, and it ended up being dominated and won by this really interesting Vileplume lock deck, which we'll talk about in today's video. We're going to break down the top 8 lists, but also some fun archetypes, which I really think could actually make some interesting state of play in the expanded format, plus also give my thoughts about will we ever see this very fun format ever return to our shores. So if we look at the results that happened in this event, we saw it was in fact won by this Vileplume lock deck, running nearly 3 very devastating Vileplume to really lock your opponent out from using any of its strategy. But it was also actually came second to this Alolan Raichu deck, which ends up to try and win turn 2 of the game, which is actually a really interesting strategy. The rest of the top 4 we've got this Iron Thorns lock style, so it's also another Vileplume deck as well, which I talked about. Plus the rest of the top 8, we have a Lugia, 2 Regidrago, and a Gouging Fire, which I think is very, very interesting. So looking at this top 8 right now, we are seeing some friendly phases which we already know and talk about in the expanded format. Raichu, Lugia, Regidrago, already some very, very powerful archetypes in the expanded format. So there's also this new Vileplume lock, which I think is very interesting as well. Having the Irritating Porin, having the other one which isn't affected by any basic Pokemon, plus also the GX, so also you have that GX ability to pretty much like poison, burn, and paralyze your Pokemon. It's very, very powerful. I really like Iron Thorns, a brand new archetype. We saw it got top 16 in the regular one, but also top 4 here. It kind of shows it's going to be that new threat in metagame. Plus, Gouging Fire, I think it's a very, very nice card and deck to really see kind of like shine through. I think it has a really, really powerful attacking option. Team up Volcanion and Welder, well, you've got a turn to attack, which can do nearly 300 damage. So let's actually break down the winning list. And we can see here, it's an absolute beautiful list. We see it has Bundle B as well, which is very, very powerful to mill up your opponent, but also get back some of your resources. It plays multiple of the Glooms. If you don't know what one of its Glooms are, pretty much you get to, if your opponent doesn't have a full bench, flip a coin. If heads, look at your opponent's hand and put a basic Pokemon in there. Very, very scary. It goes with this Vileplume style lock, which is deck absolutely love to see. We see how they 2-2 line of Pidgeot EX, a very, very thick line. We have the Airmail, so you get to look at your, pretty much look at your top few cards, choose one and put one at the bottom of the deck. One of this card which is absolutely standing out to me is this really special Pikachu. And you might go, Charlie, I have never seen this Pikachu before. Well, that's because it's an exclusive Japanese promo. What it does, what I'm assuming is the best way to use it from, is you get to discard a fire energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. In my sort of feeling by that, I do think this could be working, especially if it's a special energy. So you get to remove an energy from your opponent's side, very similar to like the Stardust Archetypes, which again, I think is a absolutely amazing choice to have in this deck. If you have like item lock Vileplume out there, plus you kind of like go through your opponents with special energies, Lugia, Regidrago, this list, there's so many archetypes right now which focus purely on just running special energy because of how powerful the likes of special charge are to recycle all your energy. So having this Jirachi makes a lot of sense. We have a good Mahala to really like set up your board state by getting all your energies, your tool cards, your stadiums, plus also the rest of them very, very disruptive supporter cards like Primarima, Team Flare Grunt, and also Faber, which I really am a big fan of this deck. I think it's very interesting, plus Super Neo Energy, you can attack with likes of Pidgeot and your Vileplumes as well, which I think is a pretty good inclusion. I'm a big fan of this archetype as well, and I think it's a really interesting version about how we're seeing control really evolve. This was definitely the most dominant way of how we're playing this one. We did see more ability lock style decks really focus, like some Garbodor is incredibly powerful, but I think this version here is a really, really fun deck. And actually, it's a lot of huge creativity as well. Having a TM evolution means you can pretty much get your Pokemon out as very, very quickly. And you can also use it under item lock as well, because it is in fact being errated to be just a tool card. The second place Raichu list is a very, very fun archetype. For those who don't really know how this works, because you might look at this and go, Charlie, there is a 1-2 line of Raichu. How on earth is this working? Well, pretty much the idea is you use Electro GX's ability. And pretty much is that you knock it out and you get some energies. I believe it is from the discard pile, hence the likes of Battle Compressor. And you pretty much flood them all onto your Raichu. You're always behind in prizes, so counter energy and reversal energy is always going to be an effect. And this could trigger Alolan Raichu's attack, which does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. but it does that for every energy you discard to it or attach to it. I always forget exactly which is the correct translation. So pretty much you can have nearly every single one of your energies on Raichu and have enough damage output to pretty much take 6 whole prize cards. You can have obviously the scope to hit Bent's weakness. So it's a very, very scary archetype. As we know, we play a lot of big low HP support Pokemon. Think of like the Dedenne, Crobat, Squawkabilly, Tapu Lele. All of these have just under 180 HP or less. So this is Raichu is very, very scary. You can hit for weakness on Lugia. It is a very, very fast-paced deck, which you're definitely going to try and win the game turn 2. That's exactly the whole strategy of this archetype. You have Skyforce, you have a lovely, lovely full board. So yeah, this is a very, very scary deck, and obviously a lot of fun. Seeing it also won by Ryoto is a really, really nice thing. He's a world-renowned player, getting multiple top 8s at Worlds, and obviously top 4 at London Worlds just a few years ago. I really, really like this Raichu, and seeing the love it gets is very, very lovely. Obviously, we haven't seen it have this great success in a while. We've seen it do okay in some online scenes, some local scenes, but seeing it do really, really well in Japan could actually put this deck a lot more on the radar that this is not a fun rogue deck. It is a absolutely could potentially be winning these huge Champions Leagues. The other one as well, we did in fact the Vileplume lock did in fact get another top 4. Again, not really much. Like, I just think this deck is absolutely beautiful, and to see it do so well is just absolutely incredible. I'm a big, big fan of this Vileplume, and this could see the best way to play control going forward. But the other top 4 does go to this Iron Thorns Garbodor. And for me, this is a really, really nice deck. Now, how does this strategy work? You just play special energies. We can get all of them from the likes of Guzmahala, getting the likes of your tool cards, getting your special energies, and of course your stadium cards. Tropical Beach is a very, very interesting stadium card. For those who don't know, this was an absolute staple in a lot of these setup decks back in the 2013 era, costing a very, very expensive amount because it is a world exclusive promo. Pretty much what you do is you draw into you have 6 cards in hand. That doesn't seem too powerful, but if you team up from a setup deck, you can get multiple setups. As you can see from this deck, you do play a lot of disruptive supporter cards like Faber, Primarina, and Lusamine to recycle all of your own supporters. But having the Garbodor as well, Garbodor's Garbotoxin ability shuts down all of Pokemon's abilities except Garbotoxin. So you team up with, you start off with your Iron Thorns, sit there, make sure all rulebooks don't have any abilities except future Pokemon, and you can pretty much get that big setup. You also have a Vikavolt, so you can use that to get some item lock. You have the Luxray to look at your opponent's hand, discard state, to card and trainer cards. There's also Lucario Melmetal, which get to use for its GX attack, pretty much meaning you can, in fact, take a little bit less damage every single turn. This is very, very powerful in the early game. Plus, Team Evolution, you can pretty much get, especially if you go second, a Garbodor set out with a Floatstone on that evolve, which is very, very scary. And I think it's a very, very good one. You can easily search out from the likes of that Guzmahala. Rest of it as well, I think is a very much disruptive sort of strategy. You have the Thunder Mountain, so your lightning Pokemon cost 1 less. So Therium, Vikavolt, and Luxray can attack for only 1 energy. Speed Lightning to get some draw factor. The rest of it is just a very, very scary setup deck. Obviously enhanced time as well, because everyone may have noticed nearly every single deck just plays special energy. So again, that's something to think about. Why that Jirachi, why that Pikachu could actually be very, very strong, getting rid of all these very, very pesky special energy. They're really flooding and dominating the Japan expanded Champions League. I think this is a very, very nice one. Obviously a very good Lugia matchup, potentially good in Regidrago as well. But anything which shuts off abilities like Garbodor, especially going first, is incredibly powerful. Now let's look at Lugia, which in fact did get top 8. And this one here, we didn't see any brand new sort of cards come out from the set, except from the likes of that Prime Catcher and Fluttermane really helping out Lugia. What I love about Fluttermane is it shuts off any opponent's Pokemon in the active spot. Think of it, if the opponent does start Lugia, they might in fact go that Wally sort of route, but they can't do that if it is in the active spot. I really am a big fan of Fluttermane being this really good staple in Lugia, and we have seen that kind of like time to time again, even in our format. Fluttermane is that really good disruptor capability. You still played the classic ones like Garchomp for sniping, but also really focusing on the likes of the Guthrie Naganadel to take some additional price with its GX attack. You may notice there is no of that Garchomp Giratina, which we have seen as an absolute must-stay in Lugia decks for nearly the entire year since it dominated the Champions League pretty much this time last year. We are seeing a weird year as well, which I'm a big fan of it, by pretty much being able to have this big attacking option in the late game, but also It's pretty strong overall. I do like the Pseudo Widow to slow down your opponent's side. We are seeing Skyfielders in nearly every single deck because you want to have a massive bench size. But if you have that limitation on your opponent's side, that's actually very strong. Special Charge to recycle any of your energies, and Birdkeeper is a really good switching out. I think this is a very nice top 8 list. Very different to how we're seeing most Lugia decks build. I do think the likes of like Garchomp and Giratina GX is a much stronger choice in from my personal preferences, but I do think it's a very nice one to see Lugia still in fact get top 8, but in fact get absolutely throned by the amazing control archetypes that in fact dominated top 4. We'll now go look at two Regidrago, and both of them are a little bit different, but still offer the same strategy. It's really weird to see that Regidrago dominates so much in the expanded form, where it's actually not really as powerful in our sort of format right now. Pretty much you can use this attack very easily set up with the likes of double dragon energy, plus also attachments from the likes of those regular sort of turns in the late game, or also from Raihan if the opponent gets knocked at one of your Pokemon. And you have a very good range of attacks to go with. You have a Noivern to slow down your opponent, not taking either basic damage, or in fact, your opponent can't use any sorts of certain cards. You have Dialga GX to take an additional turn, Gouging to reduce damage, and Rayquaza EX to deal 300 damage. I'm a big fan of this archetype. I love the Chaos Swell just to make sure your opponent can't really play a Stadium card and just bounce it out. It's very strong. The Garbodor as well to slow down any opponent's abilities, because once you get your setup, you're not really going to need any abilities afterwards. So I do think the Garbodor makes a lot of sense. And the rest of it as well, I really am a big fan of it. I really like Scoop Up Cyclone. Obviously, we're now getting a reprint of this one, and I hope you guys picked up beforehand because I'm a huge fan of Scoop Up Cyclone, especially in an archetype called Landorus Bats. But not left about that, that's a very old topic. I really am a big fan of this deck because you can just pick up your Regidragos and just pop another fresh one in the action spot, because you're only going to need one, maybe two attachments. You can even search it from a Raihan as well. So I am a big fan of this in this deck. I think it's a very strong one, very much a setup and trying to use loads of these other attacking options. The Rayquaza is a really good late game attack. The Noivern as well is really good for that disruptive capability. I think it is a very nice deck. And a little bit different to this one here, which in fact also got top 8. We can see this much thicker line of Garbodor, and even has the Duskmane and the Necrozma. I think it's the Duskmane, yeah. Pretty much it's basically like Keldeo. It's a Russian retreat, so it has that free retreat pivot option. This one still plays the Dialga, still plays the Noivern and Gouging, as well as also the Rayquaza EX, but doesn't play the Noivern EX. The rest of it as well is a little bit similar. It does play the Gardenia's Vigor, which means it's another way to NG accelerate instead of having the likes of a Raihan. Plus, this still has the likes of a Scoop Up Cyclone to pick up your Pokemon, the Wobbuffet as well to really like slow down the opponent in the early game, and the Battle Compressor to get all of your Dragon Pokemon in the discard pile. I think this is a very strong archetype in the expanded format, and Regidrago has actually been pretty dominant throughout. I could see this carry on to see in play, but we did see that the most popular decks in the expanded format did in fact only fall short of top 8, and only Raichu was the main sort of stay, which we talked about, managed to break to get into the finals. Could this deck still be a big threat to expanded? Well, definitely. It's only ever going to get stronger if they print more and more absurdly Dragon Pokemon, and we know that in a couple months' time we are going to see more Dragon types be released. So could Regidrago become more of a dominant force when that set finally gets revealed? And the final one in top 8 is Gouging Fire, and I am a huge fan of this deck. I think it is super interesting. Pretty much you can energy accelerate it much quicker from the likes of these Welder. For those who don't know, Welder is a very strong supporter, which lets you attach 2 energies from your hand to your fire Pokemon. If you do, draw 3 cards. It is very powerful, and you can easily get them from the likes of Fiery Flint, Fiery Crystal, as well as also Giant Hearth. So it's in multiple ways to try and get energies into your hand, and you can also use those energies in hand to discard them to fuel out a Volcanion EX's ability, which means if you discard a fire energy, you get to deal your fire Pokemon do 30 more damage. So Gouging Fire can do additional 60 more damage to its additional 260. That additional 60 is 320 damage, which is a lot of damage. So I do think this deck actually could be a big threat moving forward to the metagame. I think it's a very powerful one. You work with Delphox and Radiant Charizard. Again, these very good Pokemon can have a huge amount of damage capability. Delphox can now one-hit KO likes of Dedenace and the likes of Tapu Lele and Crobat. Very scary. Radiant Charizard as well. Very powerful attacking option. And we also see Prime Catcher as well as that really good gusting aspect of choice. I'm a big fan of how this Gouging Fire is. For me personally, I was a huge fan of Volcanion, and seeing it get this love in the expanded format, it's making me a little bit happy as well. I hope this sort of continues to love, because I think this is a very powerful and scary top 8 list. Now I want to talk about a couple other lists which actually did just outside of the top 8. Some top 16s as well as also I believe a top 32 and top 64, which I think is really, really interesting to see. We've seen this ability lock, which honestly is pretty scary. Wobbuffet and Iron Thorns are very, very powerful abilities. Wobbuffet shutting every single ability to Psychic is pretty good. There's also Iron Thorns as well. Like we've mentioned before, I've talked about a lot. This is a really, really powerful card. Pretty much shutting off all rulebox abilities except future ones. Plus the rest of it, you play a lot of destructive cards. You play likes of Enhanced Hammer, play likes of Crushing Hammer, Unfair Stamp, a brand new A-Spec, which we already saw dominate in our sort of the brand new format in Champions League, but also seen it have good success over here, showing that it could be very, very strong in a style controlling engine. Team Rocket's handiwork to like discard some cards from your opponent. You've got Team Flare Grunt, you've got Primarina, you've got Faber, you've got Eerie, you've got Misfortune Sisters. You've got so many of these really, really scary destructive cards. And if you look at the energies cost as well, you're sometimes not really going to be attacking with the likes. You're going to be mainly attacking with the Iron Thorns, but it's going to be a much slower sort of strategy. You want to sit there and kind of like use the speed energy to draw some cards, but also you want to like surround the opponent as much as possible. We're seeing Enhanced Hammer play so much because of how powerful, how convoluted all these special energies are. If you've noticed, there's only pretty much like one archetype, which was just that Gouging Fire, which didn't run special energy. So we saw the reason why this Pikachu, why the Stardust Jirachi are having this great success because of how strong special energies are. So that's why I think Enhanced Hammer is so, so powerful. I'm a big fan of Stability Lock. It shuts off a ton of cool archetypes. I guess obviously I know like Garbodor is a very, very formidable threat. And yes, tool cards, you can kind of go through them, but I do think this is a very, very nice archetype, and in fact could be a big threat to the expanded format. Another one is Mew did in fact get a top 16, a little bit different to how obviously we've seen most ones. What I love about it is seeing the likes of Wally. For those who don't know what Wally does, you pretty much get to evolve one of your Pokemon from searching, even if it's the first time it being played, or if it is your first turn. Obviously, if you go second. So it's a pretty scary sort of card as well. Think of the likes of Lugia and Mew. When Pokemon printed this back 10 years ago, they weren't thinking of these strategies. So being able to attack with Mew going second is very, very scary. Seismitoad Toad is a really good option as well. Making sure that you can pretty much item lock your opponent is pretty, really strong. The rest of the archetype is very much similar to how we see Mew play. The double turbos, making sure you don't take a less 20 damage is pretty nice. Sudowoodo, because you want to not let your opponent utilize any sort of a huge bench size. We're seeing Skyfield played a lot, so having a Sudowoodo is pretty nice. Path to the Peak over likes of Skyfield is a little bit different to where we're seeing Mew. I always see like Skyfield be incredibly powerful in Mew because you can just draw, or if you have a full bench of everything, pretty much draw like 8 or 9 cards, which is incredibly powerful. And also having the likes of the Path to Peak really stops down the likes of slowing down your opponent's Genesect, but also slowing down the likes of any sort of abilities. Like you shut off Iron Thorns, you shut off the likes of Lugia, you shut off so many very, very powerful abilities. So I do think it's a really good inclusion. Unfair Stamp makes a lot of sense in Mew. You want to be disruptive, you want to be that always ahead. So Unfair Stamp is a very, very good A-Spec. I'm a big fan of how this expanded Mew has kind of evolved. And the last one I'll talk about is this Charizard top 64. This is the only Charizard list I saw which actually did the best it could, but it makes a lot of sense, and you can actually absolutely see why the likes of Scoop Up Net was banned in the expanded format. If you team up with the likes of the Intellion line and search deck for any sort of trainer card, well, you're in a big, big hurt, because if they just get loads of these Scoop Up Nets, you can pretty much get anything. I believe Charizard would 100% be dominating the expanded scene. We can see a lot of it is very similar to how we're seeing most of a Charizard list, but we play likes of the Evolution Inserts and Level Ball, which adds a little bit more consistency to Charizard. We're seeing likes of Churro as well as also Scoop Up Net, so you can pick up more of your Charizard because you're not going to have that many sort of energies attached to it anyway, so you can easily reutilize them from its ability, plus also utilizing any more of your intelligence, so you can get any more of your trainer cards and keep that loop going. Teammates as well, so in the early game, you're not really get Charizard till at least turn 2, so I do think that having that teammate makes a lot of sense. The Churro as well for that pickup. The Temple of Sinnoh to slow down and stop any sort of special energies is very, very powerful. Plus also likes of Irida, because that works so well in any Intellion engine, and you can also get the rare candy for the Charizard, and the Intellion can get you the likes of anything you might require. I'm a big, big fan of this Charizard deck, and I'm really excited to see where Charizard can actually fall in the expanded format. Seeing it get that top 64 has given a lot of hope for this archetype, and I'm really excited to see where the expanded format is going to develop after we had an amazing run, and I'm a huge fan of every single top 8 list. So if we just look ahead, will the meta shift to actually counter control? We saw how powerful Vileplume really took over the metagame, but gained 2 of the top 4 spots, including the, in fact, winning spot. Can we, in fact, see a lot of people shifting away from having likes of adding more Garble into lists to really counter the likes of the Vileplume dominating the format? I do think we're 100% seeing creativity is still rewarded. Gouging Fire, we've seen Iron Thorns, we've seen the likes of that Raichu. These incredibly creative archetypes still absolutely powerhouse and dominate with the likes of Lugia and Regidrago. It's a really, really must see. The big question I want to ask everyone, will we ever see Expanded come back to the Pokemon Company, Pokemon Trading Card Game International? I really, really hope we get to see Expanded return. I know a lot of people say it's not going to. Obviously, it's not on live right now. It's very difficult to pick up some cards which you may also like, for example, Wobbuffet, which has seen some success in GLC, might absolutely skyrocket in price if we get to see this in some expanded regionals. I really hope we do see some love return to expanded format. It's kind of this more forgotten sort of archetype right now. And we can see that there are some really fun creative choices by playing 3 different likes of Vileplume for that disruptive capability. We've seen likes of Lugia and Regidrago, which sees absolutely love. And that's one thing I love about it. Some archetypes don't see success in our standard format have a new lease of life in the expanded. I really hope my expanded videos really open up you guys to really see exactly how fun the expanded format can be. There is a lot of fun creative choice. We see how dominant control is, but actually in a not in like a nice way, but actually in an actual controlling way, unlike the likes of a Blocklax, which again is pretty scary for us. So I hope you guys enjoy this little expanded breakdown, talking down memory lane and looking at these amazing top 8 lists. If you guys enjoy this expanded content, let me know in the comments down below. I love talking about this, and hopefully with this video success, we can actually talk about it a little bit more and see exactly where the expanded format could be going. As always, my name is Charlie TCG. I'll see you guys in a few days for another video. Bye for now.